everyone, and welcome to School Psych Chat's GASP Edition, the podcast dedicated to all things school psychology in the great state of Georgia. Let's get started.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of School Psych Chat's GASP Edition. I'm your host, Kylah Pollard. Let's get started. I'm very excited to bring you this podcast on behalf of the Georgia Association of School Psychologists, or GASP is what we're also known as. GASP is a nonprofit professional organization representing school psychologists in the state of Georgia. It serves as a resource and advocate for its members, promoting the field of school psychology and supporting the well-being and academic success of students. So this podcast will be used to discuss various different topics related to school psychology, but for the first few weeks of the podcast, we'll be focusing on advocacy. The GASP Advocacy Committee is hosting their annual Capitol Day in February at the Georgia State Capitol. And we've added the registration link to the show notes if you'd like to participate. But to help everybody prepare for it, we'll be discussing the basics of advocacy for the next couple of weeks. And to help with the conversation, I'm excited to welcome the chairperson for the GASP Advocacy Committee, Ms. Jakimva Martin, and GASP President Elect, Brannon Parks. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Oh, hello. How are you today?
Good morning, Kylah.
Good morning. Now, we'll be talking about advocacy in this episode. Advocacy is an important part of our jobs as school psychologists, but I know that it's something that makes a lot of school psychs nervous. Many feel like they don't have enough training to advocate, or they just don't feel comfortable trying. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what advocacy is and how to do it. According to the dictionary, advocacy is public support for or a recommendation of a particular cause or policy. I've also heard it called standing up to give a voice to the voiceless. So, Jakimva, you are really passionate about this area, and that's why you're the chairperson. I mean, you volunteered to be in charge of all of this and help us with this task. So how would you describe advocacy?
Thank you for that question, Kylah. So for me, I think advocacy is, when I look at it, it's standing alongside someone or a group of people for a cause that you believe in, a cause that you know is worthy, a cause that you know represents the best interest of someone or something or some group. And I think for me, that's kind of the foundation of what I believe advocacy to be, being able to stand up for, to be able to describe, to be able to impassion others to act on the behalf of a common cause and work together to achieve whatever that common cause is.
I think that's really well said. But that still seems like a really daunting task. Being able to stand up and be that person and promote that cause. So what are the steps for advocacy?
So I think it really depends on what specific topic you're engaging in. But in general, when I look at advocacy and kind of how I look forward to addressing a particular task, I start out with what is the issue? Number one, I have to define for myself, what is the issue? And if I'm working with a group of others, making sure that we all have a commonality of what we believe the issue to be. Then it's understanding, why is it important? Why does this issue even matter? What benefit will it have for us resolving that particular issue? So some of it is that internal work that you have to do first, identifying what the problem is, defining what that problem is. Why does it make a difference in our community, to our people, or to a person or a group of persons? Once I've identified those particulars, then it's, what can I as an individual do about it? And the things that are beyond my scope as an individual, how do I get others like yourself, like Brannon, to be able to come in and join with me to be able to address that cause? Because we know that even one voice can make a difference, but we know the more voices that we have together speaking to a common cause with a common goal, the more that we can have impact, because the more times people hear concerns, they really start saying, well, hey, I've heard this from several different people. Maybe I need to see what's really going on for myself. And then you find people that say, hey, I read the article that you guys were talking about, whatever it is, like for us, school psych shortage, and you may made some really great points. How can I help? So sometimes it's just getting the knowledge and starting to share what your concerns are with others in your circle of influence, and then they share with others in their circle of influence. And so it grows and grows without you necessarily having to speak, say, before a group of 100 people, 500 people, or whatever. It may just be a circle of your friends, a circle of your coworkers or your colleagues that you've expressed something to, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? I've noticed that. I just didn't know that there was anything we could do about it. What can we do about it?" And so being able to start there, it's as simple as starting there. Of course, there are larger areas of advocacy that you can address as well, but that's a very simple way to start, with having conversations with those people in your sphere of influence so that you can begin to raise awareness. Sometimes we're not doing anything about a particular issue because we're not aware that it is an issue.
Yeah. And you're talking about having those conversations and knowing what is within my control and what I can influence and what I can't. What do you do whenever it's something that's way out of your control? Like, how do you start that process of advocating for something that's so big and so complicated and so far out of our control?
Brandon, do you want to start that, or do you want?
Sure, sure. So I'll piggyback a little bit off of what Jakimva said. The first thing we do as GASP, we're a small organization, relatively speaking, compared to some of the other educational organizations in the state, is we partner. The Professional Association of Georgia Educators, the Georgia Association of Educational Leaders, or GALE, Georgia Council of Administrators of Special Education, GCASE. We reach out to them. We start those conversations. Who do we need to talk to? What can we do as a small organization to help bring these issues to you and to your members? And Page is, oh gosh, close to 200,000 members. GALE and GCASE are much larger than we are. And so that's how we started these conversations, Kylah. And GAE, I don't want to leave GAE out, the Georgia Association of Educators, because we've partnered with them as well.
And also, Kylah, I think the other thing that Brandon hit on is, we acknowledge that some of these are very complex tasks. A lot of times we're addressing things that are significantly important, but they're multi-layered. So we understand that there is not a quick fix. We understand that it requires all of us to solve these issues, because it not only is a complex issue, but it's an issue that requires the expertise of a lot of different areas to be able to make things happen. Whereas school psychologists, we have the expertise in the services that we provide, how the shortages are impacting our individual districts, how they're impacting our individual students, and then collectively how they are impacting the students in the state of Georgia. And then our legislators, they have the expertise of, here's the process that we have to go through in order to do something from a legal standpoint, to be able to enact laws that can help to remedy some of these issues. And then we have our partners, such as Brandon mentioned, that understand the other components from the educational system and how the educational system works. So it requires all of us to be willing to partner and reach across the aisles to be able to make sure that we are getting the expertise from all of those people that need to be at the table having that discussion.
Yeah, and you're talking about having those small discussions with people who are in bigger organizations or have that different expertise than us. And some of those people, though, we only get a really short period of time to talk to. I've spoken to some legislators in the past, because we've been doing this work for a little while, and you only get 2 minutes, 5 minutes max. How do you get all of that information across that has to be said in such a short period of time?
Well, Kylah, so it's a term that's out there in the zeitgeist. It's called the elevator speech. You've seen it on TV shows. It was in Succession. It was in other shows. You get a small amount of time to try to get the maximum amount of your point across. So what Jakimva and I and our other partners have done is just try to distill the major things, or what we call ASKS, ASKS, down. What are we asking for? And how can we get that information across in a concise manner? And then hopefully pique their interest where they say, well, hey, do you have something you can give me, or you can give my office, or here, would you please talk to this person in my office and get more information of them? I don't have enough time right now to talk to you in depth about this, but I would like to learn more about this based upon this tiny conversation that we got to have. Probably not in an elevator, but if we're in the Capitol, you know what? It could be in an elevator because they do have one. But it might be walking up and down the steps, wherever it is, in their office. They're very busy people. And like you alluded to, and Jakimva as well, that the legislators are up in Atlanta for only 40 legislative days, and they have to get a lot done in that time. So very few of them are experts in the education system, even though they might sit on the education committee. They might chair the education committee, but very few of them actually have worked in education. So what we try to do is pique their interest in that small amount of time we have, and then get it to a point to where they want to learn more information from us.
And I know the next time that we do one of these podcasts, it'll be about that legislative process and what our process looks like, because it does look very different than other states and even the federal government. Georgia is a very unique state in that way. So I know we'll be able to get into a little bit more detail about that next time. But going back to the elevator speech, can you give us an example of what that's supposed to look like?
Well, Jakimva, can you jump in with me here? So this kind of partners with what we're going to talk about next, which is what is our ask. So you want to make sure that that minute to 2 minutes you get, that you include the two things that we are mainly asking for this year, which I'll let Jakimva talk about the two things we're asking for. And then if you would like me to give an example, I can do that, Jakimva.
So we are asking from our legislators collectively for the Interstate Compact Agreement. We're wanting to be added as school psychologists to be approved for the Interstate Compact. The second thing that we are asking for is a reduction in our ratio. We know that this has been a huge issue for a really long time, and so we're really wanting to increase that awareness so that we can start to reduce that ratio so that we can better serve our children in the state of Georgia.
And so what that would look like, Kylah, let's just say you have 2 minutes. My state representative is Patty Stinson from Butler, Georgia, my personal one. And so I have 2 minutes with Representative Stinson. So, hey, Representative Stinson, I'm Brannon Parks. I live in your district. Lead with that, because if you live in their district, you can vote for them or vote for their opponent. So I live in your district. I'm one of your constituents. I'm a school psychologist for, in my case, Chattahoochee, Flint, Risa. We serve numerous counties in your district. I'm here at the Capitol today to just talk about two things. We have the Interstate Compact for School Psychology, which has been introduced. It would help alleviate our shortage and help military families by removing some red tape for school psychologists that have moved into our state that are certified in other states. We'd love your support on that. I can get you any information. Representative Bethany Ballard from Houston County is the one that is carrying that legislation at the Capitol this year. And then the one other thing we'd like to talk to you about is reducing our ratio. And we always say that, Representative Stinson, but we have the Georgia Association of Educational Leaders, GCASE, and PAGE, and we've set a number. We want to just reduce it just a little bit this year. Representative Stinson, right now we are currently funded at one school psychologist for every 2,475 students in the state of Georgia. We'd like to just minutely lower that ratio to one school psychologist to every 2,420 students. And as we move forward through the years, we'd like to look at that more in depth. But right now, that's all we're asking for this year. And I would love the opportunity to speak with somebody on your staff or with you more in depth about this, but I know you're busy right now. Here's my card. Here's our one-pager, which Jakimva is going to mention in a little bit. Just some more information. Please get in touch with me. I would love to talk to you further about this. I might have come in under 2 minutes. I'm not sure, Kylah. That's what I was trying for.
I think you did. I think it was like 90 seconds, which is a good elevator ride. So what I heard was the introduction. You introduce yourself. You introduce how you're connected to that person. I'm your constituent. I live in your district. What my job is, what my role is. I'm a school psychologist in this area. And this is what is going on. This is what we're asking for. and here's more information that I can hand you right now, which is the one pager. And here's my card so that we can talk about it in the future whenever you have time. Did I hit all the pieces?
I believe so.
I think another important thing, Kylah, is if you have that opportunity, if you have that extra 30 seconds, being able to say specifically a way that you are being impacted, a way that your
Yes.
students within their district are being impacted in a way where is if we had what we needed, if we had the more robust resources that we needed, that we would be able to do more and keep our children safer, to provide our children more support, those types of things, because we all want to provide our students with what is going to make them the best future citizens and constituents that can vote in the state of Georgia. And I think it's also important in having Gail and having the Georgia Department of Education acknowledging that there are some specific things that needs to be addressed within the area of school psychology, and being able to be on their priority list, I think also is something that we should be able to say, because then it's not just the Georgia Association of School Psychologists making the ask. It's also that these other professional agencies have acknowledged that there are issues that need to be addressed. And while, as Brannon mentioned, the ask was for that reduction from where we currently are to 1 and 2,420 students, but we know that that's not adequate. And being able to state up front, we need more robust to be the best and most efficient and most effective, and to yield the greatest return on investment of our tax dollars, so that they understand that this is not our only ask. This is where we are starting, if we're wanting to start with that, or being able to just straight out acknowledge that, we have acknowledgement from these agencies and organizations that see the same issues that we've been discussing. And we want to have a more robust request, So I think it's just about being able to kind of gauge and that relationship you have. Some of us are more engaged, and our legislators may be more familiar with us. And then some, it may be your first time meeting your legislator, because you may be very new to the advocacy world. And that's fine, because we all start somewhere.
Yeah, and I know that for those who are going to the Capitol, we're going to have lunch and learns where we'll specifically teach you, here's how you email them, here's what you say, here are the packets, this is what you're talking about. So that'll be really helpful for those who go to the Capitol with us. But for everybody else, just this, being able to have this conversation and being comfortable with, okay, here's how I do an elevator speech, is really helpful.
And then one thing, Kylah, I'd like for folks to remember, and I know we just came through an election season, if you vote is public knowledge, not who you vote for, but they can go and see, did you vote? So always remember, just please vote. They can't tell who you voted for, but they can see if you vote.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so we've already kind of talked about what GASP is advocating for this year, what the specific asks are with the Interstate Compact for School Psychologists, the ICSP, and then just reducing that funding ratio. So I know we've talked about the asks, and we've mentioned the one pager a couple of times. Can you talk about what resources we have on the website and what resources we have available to people who want to advocate every day?
Absolutely. So we have two staples that we keep in our repertoire. One is our position statement, which really talks about the impacting school psychologists' ability to provide the most optimal services, the best services that our students of Georgia deserve. And so we talk about why this is an urgent problem. We talk about the impact of our student mental health crises. We have so many students now that have some experience with mental health crises in some level, in some intensity, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's withdrawal. We have a lot of different things that our children are facing, but we don't have enough professionals to manage those issues. And we know that before our children can come in ready to learn, they have to be prepared, emotionally, psychologically, their basic needs have to be met. And so being able to talk about what that urgency is, because sometimes people are like, so why is that a problem? But then when you help them to understand the number of students, 1 in 5 students experiences some type of mental health issue each year. That's a significant portion of our children, Then being able to talk about the shortage. So that's something that we have listed on there, being able to talk to them specifically about what the shortage looks like, how it is impacting our ability to provide those optimal services, how it's impacting our ability to provide early intervention. And we all know that early intervention is key. And then we also talk about the funding ratio piece, how long it's been since our funding ratio has been changed, and that's significant. It's been over 30 years, and so we know that our population of children has increased over that time. We know that the amount of challenges that our children are experiencing have increases, but we've not increased, our ability to support those children with school psychological services via school psychologists. And so that gives us all that common talking point. It gives us the same numbers to be able to talk through, so that when we're having conversations, whether it's with a legislator from South Georgia, from Atlanta, from Middle Georgia, wherever that legislator is, they're hearing the same types of conversations. So that's the second opportunity that we have, or what we call our media kit, which is our one pager, and it's actually 2 pages, but it's front and back. What it does is it helps us to provide in a snapshot, where 2-minute elevator speech, who we are. Who are school psychologists? What do we do? What is GASP and what is its mission? What is its vision? And then it also helps us to, on the back part of that media kit, to talk about school psychology facts, right? So it gives, here's some of the just quick facts that you can point out. So when you're doing your elevator speech, you might want to look at the back page before you get started and pick out what are the 2 that are most important to you that connect to what the asks are, right? So it gives you some numbers, because we all like numbers, right? We all like data to be able to utilize, but then you also want the heart of the piece. And so the resources that we are providing they help to provide a factual piece to go along with the heart piece that you are able to provide as a school psychologist providing services in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, and I like to point out to people every time I've had conversations about this, that advocacy is not just at the Capitol once a year with legislators. It's not even always with legislators. A lot of times you're advocating every day for your kids. You advocate every day for your families. You advocate every day for your teachers and for your schools and your different communities. And so, advocacy is something that you do every day, and it's not as scary as it seems. Going to see legislators can be really nerve-wracking for a lot of people, but you practice these skills every single day. And even just practicing your elevator speech with, your principals, or with your superintendent, if your superintendent's nice enough to be able to do that with you. And that can be really helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that is a great point, Kylah. Making sure that your local influencers have the same information as well, because our superintendents, they also have advocacy days, right? Your principals may be involved in Gale and things like that as well, where they have the opportunity to advocate for you. So being able to make sure that they have that those one pagers. One of the things that I did in my district, I gave our superintendent, both of our associate superintendents, both of the one pagers that we have. And then I also gave them one of these nice buttons, to add on, and they just thought it was so cute. But now they have information. I actually was able to sit down and talk to our associate superintendent about it, kind of here's some of the important things. Here's what we've been working on to advocate for our children, and how it will also benefit Lawrence County to be able to make sure we're providing the absolute best services to our children, because they deserve it. And so they were really, really impressed. They're like, wow, this is like amazing, And so a lot of times, again, it's just that they don't know. And when you take that couple of minutes to check in with your superintendent, and I'd be willing to bet 99.9% of our superintendents probably would be interested in hearing that. Again, we can't take an hour to do it, but again, practicing that 2-minute elevator speech and leaving that information with them so that they have more information to go to. So when they happen to go to Capitol, when they're going to their superintendent's meetings during the summer, they can say, hey, did you all get this? Here's what my school psychologist is sharing. And then when you have, a lot of different different school districts superintendents that are saying, hey, they're talking about that as well. Okay, this must be a statewide problem. How can we help? And so we have, again, more voices that are now coming to the table to be able to help advocate. And then we've already given them clearly what is it that we're asking for, because they may have said, we thought 1,200 or 2,420 was a great number. We didn't realize that you all's goal ultimately is to get down this far. Okay, let's talk about how we could help you achieve your goal, or hey, this is not realistic, but this might. So then you open up all those wonderful and rich conversations to help us all to do better.
And I know we talked about the one pager, we talked about the priority statement, and both of those are on the GASP online website. That's also listed in the show notes. And there's all kinds of other resources on the website. The website is going through a complete overhaul right now. It's been in the process for a little while, and we're, systematically overhauling the website, but it's full of really good resources for every type of issue that you need. We're also a group of school psychologists that work for school psychologists and with the help of school psychologists. So we all are happy to answer any questions that come up. And so you can reach out to us at GASP Online, on Instagram, Georgia Association of School Psychologists on Facebook. You can email us. The emails are listed on the website also, so you can email us that way. And we're happy to answer any questions that come up. So thank you both so much for being here today. I really appreciated it.
Thank you, Kylah.
Thank you so much for having us. And we look forward to all of our colleagues in school psychology helping with this advocacy effort. You can advocate locally, you can advocate at the Capitol with us in February, and we look forward to seeing you.
This has been a wonderful and informative conversation. Tune in next time while we decode the Gold Dome and discuss the Georgia legislative process. Talk to you soon.
That's all for today's School Psych Chat. Thanks for listening. To keep the conversation going, follow us at GASP Online, and don't forget to like and subscribe this podcast. Talk to you next time.